Hey folks, this is Ben Kinney, publisher of Business North Carolina Magazine. Recently we held our annual travel and tourism roundtable, and it was a really neat group of folks. We had representatives from all over the state, representing the mountains, the coast, Eastern North Carolina, the Piedmont, and we had a really good discussion about how the past year, 2021, has been for the industry, and came up with some of the responses that we got from our panel were really, I thought, really interesting, and something that y'all will be very interested to hear. So without further ado, here's a snippet from that discussion that we held, and the rest of the discussion will be featured in our December issue coming up in a couple of weeks. Until then, enjoy this portion of the discussion. Thanks. The travel and tourism industry is incredibly important to North Carolina, always has been, always will be. And obviously, as with other industries, but I think in many ways, many more, it was affected quite a bit by the pandemic of 2020, and still is to a degree. But what I'd like to do is, and Whit, if you can kick things off for us, if you could just tell us a little bit about how, basically, when we last had our meeting, November, early December, or November, December of 2020 up to now, how have things fared? What have you been seeing from kind of a broad view, from a statewide view, regarding the industry?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think North Carolina has recovered quickly. Probably more quickly than most. I think we've got the assets that people are looking for, whether it's mountains, coast, golf, urban areas that don't feel urban, where you can get outside. We've got a little bit of everything that people want. So we've seen a really good recovery. It's been a fascinating year for us. I'd say about a third of the destinations in the state are on record pace, which is great. A third of the destinations in the state are still really hurting. And haven't made it back anywhere near where they were. And then a third are about, are doing okay. So it's been a really interesting split as to how this is impacted and how quickly recovery has come back.
That's good to hear, for sure. And I've noticed it myself in terms of going on vacation, but actually when we'll delve into this a little bit in terms of meetings and conventions, especially lately this fall. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start from the west and head east. And Vic, if you can tell us from your from the high country, so to speak, up in Asheville and Buncombe County, what have you been seeing? How was the most of the year for 2021 for y'all?
Yeah, well, thanks. Glad to be here and representing Asheville. So COVID's impact certainly has been a mixed bag for Asheville and Buncombe County. Outdoor outfitters and activities really excelled and continue to excel through this time period. And indoor cultural venues certainly had their share of challenges. Coming into 2021, it's really heartening to see live music venues that are outdoors thriving again. It's a great love of mine. And while our hotel occupancy dropped to 50% in 2020, which is down to 2010 levels, those who were willing to travel or work from anywhere were opting for vacation rentals. So when we're talking about our occupancy revenue, occupancy revenue for both hotels and vacation rentals for our fiscal year, vacation rentals sales ended up the year 110% up. While hotels ended the fiscal year just 5% up, and that was really because of the strength of May and June of this calendar year, as people were really willing to open back up, and people's hearts and minds were open for travel. And so what we saw is vacation rentals continuing to climb, and then our hotel partners rebounding. So it wasn't a trade-off of people then going from vacation rentals back to hotels. It was a net plus for everyone, which is a great win for local residents who are renting out their homes to get incremental income from visitors returning to our community.
That's good to hear. Very good to hear. Hey, well, let's head to Winston-Salem. Richard, tell us a little bit about how 2021 turned out for y'all, or is turning out for y'all from your standpoint. And I'll tell you, you got a good place in my heart because I spent a lot of time when I was a kid in Winston-Salem. And like I said, any place that is the birth of Krispy Kreme donuts, has got to be good, without a doubt. Shot heard around the nation for that place, without a doubt.
Thanks, Ben. Well, being near the coast or mountains, we're smack dab in the middle and an urban center, we got crushed by COVID. We saw a reduction of roughly occupancy tax during COVID months of roughly 50%, which is pretty consistent with what the state just put out with their numbers, where visitor spending was down 47% in 2020 versus 2019. So we got hit by about roughly, we got cut in half. Over 60% of our business, hotel business that comes here is for corporate transient and convention and meetings. Roughly 30% in both segments. So with the pandemic, obviously corporate transit all stopped. We're in the mass gathering business, that all stopped. So it's pretty devastating. The COVID year, as all the urban communities, really, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Winston, Greensboro, we all were hit anywhere between 40 and 50% in terms of visitor spending and tax collections, because we are, we're urban and people were trying to avoid urban. And our good friends and colleagues in the mountains and both and coast actually was able to survive quite well because of that, because of the pandemic. But with that said, I will tell you, thank goodness, we are definitely rebounding. We have made up more than half. Hotel revenue in calendar year 21, we already surpassed in 20 by the end of August. So we are rebounding in a pretty aggressive way, which is great. Corporate transient is still not back. I like to see business, North Carolina. You got to do a shout out to companies and businesses across North Carolina and encourage two things. One, get people back in the office, back working, and two, get them back out meeting, traveling, and doing business in the great state of North Carolina, because the visitor industry will still not be able to fully recover until our businesses and companies are traveling and doing business as we have always done in the past. But the convention and meeting stuff is coming back, and that's been real good. And it's interesting. We were very much gearing up towards this whole hybrid convention and meeting environment, from now, for the foreseeable or ever future. It's not really happening. People want to be with people. People want to meet. Now, granted, most of the meetings that have come back are smaller in numbers, with fewer people, some people choosing not to come to meetings and conventions, but no one's really asking for hybrid. They want people to come and people want to be together. And I'm encouraged by that. And I think people are Zoom tired. And so I think the meetings and convention things will come back, maybe smaller in scope. But I don't think we're going to lose all this business to Zoom and teleconferencing. The sports things are definitely coming back and came back even before the meetings. Much of that is outdoors. So I would say from an urban Winston perspective, we were devastated by the pandemic, but we are definitely moving in very much in the right direction. Calendar year 21. And our booking pace is very strong for 22, 23 and beyond. So fingers crossed that we keep moving in that direction.
That's very true. And I will say, I can't wait we'll delve into that for everybody a little bit with the meetings and conventions and where y'all see that going. Because we've held a few, I've attended a few, and I'm seeing exactly what you're saying in terms of the people wanting to get together. And we'll delve into that in a little bit. Speaking of which, Lindsay, down at the Pinehurst Resort, and I know this from working with y'all, and our corporate headquarters are in Southern Pines as well. Y'all have been busy, and a lot of it has to do with golf. And that was definitely a saving grace for being a golf resort during the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit about how things are going down at Pinehurst?
Yeah, sure. So all of that is true. Golf was, if there's ever a silver lining with COVID, I would say it was beneficial to golf in so many ways. And so we've been able to hold strong. The hotels were closed for 2 months last year, but ever since then, we've been just completely busting at the seams. We've been sold out as of July of this year through the end of November. And so we have stopped selling our hotels for the current period of time and have actually seen a gradual increase in property turndowns. Our cancellations had climbed a little bit for a while with just the numbers going back up with COVID, but have since leveled off a bit. We are selling a lot for 2022. We are hoping to pass over 25,000 room nights on the books for just our social room nights for 22. And then our group business it's a steady increase that we're seeing groups come back a lot for 2022 on the books. But I think with all of this, we've been able to kind of be a little bit pickier about the kind of meetings and conventions that are coming to Pinehurst, because since they all completely stopped for much of last year, we're able to kind of bring back the ones that are the most profitable, the ones that bring in the most business to Pinehurst. And so it's been really good for us around here. I will say we are sold out, but the lower staffing levels is kind of our challenge right now with just how we can maintain our hotels and the level of service that people come to expect with Pinehurst.
And we'll get into that definitely in terms of labor shortage and those issues as well, in terms of challenges as we move forward. Heading over to Greenville, Pitt County. Andrew, good to see you, man. I will tell you that, I don't know if you guys attend, I think I see all you at this, but the AENC, the crazy, convention thing that they do in Raleigh as well, where you guys all kind of show your wares and stuff like that. That's just really cool. You always have one of the best displays around and stuff like that. And that Sup Dogs stuff that you guys did a couple years back, that's a good hot dog, man. That's a really good hot dog, without a doubt, for sure. Hey, tell us what's going on in Greenville. I know that things were pretty challenging, definitely with COVID with y'all. Tell us a little bit about what's going on now and how 2021 is faring for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Ben. 2020 was definitely challenging, as you say, much like Richard. We have a lot of conventions and meetings that take place in Greenville with our convention center campus. That was challenging. But there was some silver linings, I think, that resulted from COVID. Outdoor recreation was something that we had focused on, but not heavily focused on. And looking at numbers and the fact that we were having our outfitters report that 1 out of every 2 persons that were taking trips on the Tar River were from out of town, we really started to focus on that. And those outdoor recreation numbers in 2020 actually really helped our community, not so much in the area of occupancy tax, but in sales tax revenue. So I think Greenville and Pitt County were one of the fortunate municipalities and counties that actually increased their sales tax revenue from the year before. And we think outdoor recreation had a lot to do with that. 2021 has been wonderful. The first 3 months were a little bit slow, but once we hit April, we really started going, especially in our sports tourism. Our sports tourism folks have already set a record for 2021 versus any other time in the calendar year. So that has been a very, very strong market for us, 2 to 3 tournaments a weekend. So that's a market that we'll continue to concentrate on. Convention and meetings, Ben, there was some glimmer of hope for the fall. We had some conventions and meetings booked. We had a few take place. I think Lindsay alluded to the spike in the Delta variant that took place. So we did lose a few of those for the fall, but 22 and 23 are looking really strong in our conventions and meetings market. And so that gives us a lot of hope for our hotels that rely on that business. And I think really the thing that has struck me the most for 2021, especially in the summer and fall, is it has felt a lot more normal than in 2020. We've had, East Carolina University home football games that have had no restrictions. I think everybody really missed tailgating and realized what they were missing on those fall weekends. Those are special weekends for us in Greenville. So we're very, very optimistic about the future. Our occupancy tax revenues in 2021 have surpassed 2020 already. And we're just in, we're in the fall, but we've already passed it as of September. So things are looking much better in Greenville.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I know exactly what you're talking about, that spike and how it affected short-term kind of those, especially the large scale meetings that people had planned as well from that standpoint. Hey, Bucky, tell us a little, first and foremost, I know that your property just kind of started kicking off when things were hitting. It was up and running from that standpoint, but I'm sure that when it was like getting full stride, then this mess hit and stuff like that. You're in one of the coolest places in the state for sure. I mean, in terms of Beaufort, it's beautiful, and it's a jewel that I think you guys, especially with the opening of the hotel, I think you guys really want to bring a way to bring more people out to the area from that standpoint. How did y'all manage through COVID, and how'd you manage through 2021?
Thank you. So my perspective is a little different. I'm not a professional. I'm just an owner. Having said that, from an ownership standpoint, 2020 was fairly easy to describe with us. Triple P saved our ass. Just that simple. 2021 has been a very strong positive in our hotel. We're running about 20% over our plan. I will share with you that our plan was a little conservative because everybody was gun shy with the COVID. So I can't subscribe the full 20% to excellent performance. Some of it was conservancy in the planning process. Another reportable thing, of course, is that which many of you folks are far more professional than I, is the first 8 months of this year, our collections for occupancy tax are up 48%. One of the things that I watch is the local sales tax in Beaufort, where we live, and our sales tax revenues for the first 7 months are up 34%. So we are shining here and very pleased with it. Now, again, as you mentioned, we just opened in 2019, perfect timing to walk into 2020. But basically, as I've described, that was our solution to 2020, and we were deemed sustainable from an ownership standpoint. And then in 2021 has been extremely strong, and we're forecasting that now because we're now starting to get some of the green blades of more business meetings, which we had very little at. Needless to say, we're seeing that starting now in the hotel as they reported to me. There's no question that the labor issue, almost 50% of our revenue is food and beverage, and food and beverage is heavily impacted by the labor issue, however we want to describe it.